In this season of Metro Stop, we're going to visit 5 stations named after 5 men whose lives intersected at the Dreyfus Affair. I'm going to tell that story through them. These men were brought together by the cause of the falsely imprisoned Alfred Dreyfus to fight for justice and become the most well-known faces of the Dreyfus R movement. To understand each man's involvement and impact on the scandal, we need to understand their background, their politics and their worldview, and talk about their lives after the affair. In the previous episode, we started with Georges Clemenceau, and in this episode, we're going to unravel some more truths about France in the 19th century. We're going to talk about the political and social climate, the Golden Age, which, after the horrors of World War I, would become to be known affectionately as the Belle Epoque. But the Belle Epoque is only Belle in hindsight. This memory is retrospective. At the time, the Republic was fragile and uncertain. Reactionary groups denounced the age as decadent. A new, virulent form of anti-Semitism was spreading. Politics grew more polarised. France simmered with anger over the loss of Alsace-Lorraine and a growing desire for revenge against Germany, all of which created the perfect circumstances for one of the biggest, most divisive scandals in French history. This is Metro Stop Podcast, and I'm your host, Kelly Blair. Champs-Elysée Clemenceau is a station on line 1. When you exit the station, you are flanked by both the Petit Palais and the Grand Palais, and you find yourself on arguably the world's most famous avenue. Today we're taking a walk down the avenue that has seen queens and emperors, invading armies, electric lights, luxury boutiques, and more national parades than any other stretch of pavement in France. The Champs-Elysées. Covering the Champs-Elysées gives us the opportunity to delve into French society during the time of the Third Republic. It's an outlier theme of the season, but I could not do an episode. So it's a bonus episode linked to Georges Clemenceau. The story of the Champs-Elysées begins in mud, marshland, vegetable plots. This was the edge of Paris, a place where market gardeners grew produce to haul into the city. Then, Marie de Medici arrived. Florentine by birth, Queen of France by marriage, and a woman who brought Renaissance taste and Renaissance drama wherever she went. She married Henry IV. She became Queen Consort, and after his assassination in 1610, a regent for her 8-year-old son, Louis XIII. Her regency is a swirl of political missteps and power struggles with the French nobility. Eventually, Louis XIII had her closest advisor assassinated and exiled her. It's messy, it's operatic, and it's very Medici. But culturally, she's transformative. Marie commissions the Luxembourg Palace, brings Florentine aesthetics to Paris, and the Medici fountain in the Jardin de Luxembourg is hers. In 1622, a few years after returning from exile, she commissions Peter Paul Rubens to paint a series depicting her life to recreate the sumptuous surroundings she had left in Florence. These paintings have hung in the Louvre Museum since 1817. But way before that, in 1615, she orders the creation of a tree-lined walkway extending from Tuileries, the Cours la Reine, inspired by the Cascade in Florence. This is the seed of the Champs-Elysées. A few decades later, in 1670, Louis XIV's landscape architect, André Le Nôtre, extends it into a long, straight, majestic avenue, Le Grand Cours, cutting across meadows and marshes in the direction of what is now Place de l'Étoile. The name Champs-Elysées appears in 1694 and becomes official in 1709, a deliberate contrast to its swampy origins. The Elysian fields in Greek mythology are the resting place of heroes, a paradise of eternal spring. Paris essentially names its future luxury boulevard after heaven. By the 19th century, the avenue is fashionable. Aristocratic mansions are built, gardens are landscaped, and the future presidential palace is built nearby. Then comes one of its great theatrical moments, the arrival of Marie Louise of Austria in 1810. She is married to Napoleon as part of a political alliance, and she enters Paris along the Champs-Elysée under a temporary triumphal arch built just for the occasion. 4 years later, in 1814, the avenue witnesses a very different procession. The Allied armies of Russia, Prussia, Austria entering Paris after defeating Napoleon in the Battle of Paris in 1814. It was part of the War of the Sixth Coalition. Tsar Alexander I and King Frederick William III watch from a gallery near the Elysee Palace as troops parade past. Soldiers camp in the surrounding gardens and leave them in ruins. Louis XVIII will later restore the area. In 1828, the city of Paris invests in fountains, gas lamps and general beautification. It's the first major urban redesign. Then we reach the Belle Epoque, the era that gives the Champs-Elysées its modern identity. It stretches from the end of the Franco-Prussian War in 1871 to the outbreak of World War I in 1914. And it is remembered as the golden age because living standards rose dramatically for the upper and middle classes. Industrial output tripled. Electricity, telephones, railways, cars and aviation reshaped daily life. The economy grew and wages rose. Mass-produced goods flooded into the market. Paris was reinventing itself and it felt fast and bright and thrilling. The Champs-Elysées becomes the Republic's runway during this period. The Third Republic is politically fragile, a patchwork of monarchists, radicals, Bonapartists and Republicans who can't agree on much except that they don't want the others to win or have the power. But paradoxically, this weakness creates stability. No one faction can dominate, so the system muddles forward. Europe is unusually peaceful. Germany is diplomatically balancing the great powers. France is expanding its empire. And Paris, especially the Champs-Elysées, becomes the place where the Republic performs confidence it doesn't entirely feel. The Grand Palais and Petit Palais are built for the 1900 World's Fair exhibition. Temples of glass and iron and Beaux-Arts exuberance stand just off the avenue like monuments to French ingenuity. They're not just buildings, they're statements, and they are beautiful. They say France is modern, France is strong, France is still the cultural capital of the world. With this economic prosperity, social life becomes a spectacle. The avenue is filled with cafes, theatres, music halls and department stores. Flaneurs stroll, artists observe, and the Impressionist movement gains momentum. The middle class performs its newfound confidence. Mass entertainment explodes all over the city. The Moulin Rouge, the Can-Can, new theatre styles, and the realism of modern writers. Life in this new republic feels modern, democratic, and accessible, at least for those who can afford it. The lower classes did not benefit in the same way. Poverty and terrible living conditions still existed. Beneath the noise, the cracks widen. Anti-Semitism hardens into a modern, radicalised form. Reactionary groups rail against decadence. The extremes of left and right gain strength. And the wound of Alsace-Lorraine festers, feeding a desire for a future war. This is the Paris that will soon tear itself apart over the fate of one Jewish artillery officer, Alfred Dreyfus. A city dazzling the world with electric lights, while political fractures, resentments and fears simmer just below the surface. The Champs-Elysées is a perfect symbol of the age, beautiful, modern, confident and built on unstable ground. By the late 19th century, it is the fanciest avenue in the world. Belle Epoque glamour, cafes, theatres and the rise of luxury culture. Today, it's still one of the most expensive retail streets on earth, with annual rents around €12,500 per square metre. Louis Vuitton's flagship is the crown jewel, and Phuket Brasserie, founded in 1899, remains the iconic restaurant, with links to French cinema and the Caesar Awards going all the way back to the 1930s. Since the 19th century, the Avenue has become a backdrop for national rituals. The Bastille Day military parade marches down every July 14th. Since 1975, the Tour de France bike race ends here in a dramatic sprint. New Year's Eve brings 1 million people into the street, and Christmas lights have sparkled here since 1980. And now, in the 21st century, the Champs-Elysée is undergoing another transformation. Paris is re-greening the avenue, expanding pedestrian space, reducing traffic, and making it car-free on the first Sunday of each month. It's a return to its origins as a promenade, but reimagined for a modern city. It's worth noting that, in general, Parisians don't just hang out on the Champs-Elysées. Apart from national events, the Avenue is mostly a commercial tourist trap, albeit a very pretty one. The Champs-Elysées has been a marsh, a royal vanity project, a military stage, a Belle Epoque runway, and a global shopping mecca. And now, an example of the environmental future of cities. In part 2 of this season, we will meet Emile Zola, and we will talk about the escalation of the Dreyfus affair. This is Metro Stop Podcast. All my sources for this episode are listed in the show notes. Music was Orpheus in the Underworld by Jacques Offenbach.